And on now you mentioned this. You said that you saw Django and Django on. You saw Django and
Netflix.
Django on
Netflix.
Netflix,
Yeah,
and I never
Netflix.
heard of that. I was like, well, is that a Django film I haven't heard of? So I just looked it up and realized that this seems to be what Netflix does well, and it's a documentary that has Quentin Tarantino as its thumbnail. I'm seeing as the fact that you're going to see your favorite Quentin Tarantino film tonight. I have a feeling that I know where you think your money was better spent this week. But but so tell us about Django and Django.
Okay, so Django and Django. So obviously Tarantino did Django Unchained, and
Yes.
there's based on the original film called Django, which was by a director called Sergio Corbucci, which
Yeah.
was the second best spaghetti western director in
Okay.
in Italy.
After Sergio Leone.
After Sergio Leone, and they were mates. Sergio Leone were mates, and this is all about a documentary of how they cut their teeth really as sort of just being, runners for the thing, and then gradually they worked into, worked their way up through the sets to first, second director, and then screenplays and all that. So it starts off with the early Italian movies, and then it goes up. But Tarantino just so knows his movies. I'm not kidding. I could listen to him talk to hours. He is just absolutely a mind of information when it comes to movies, and he loves it, doesn't he? He must live it. He must live the whole.
He totally does live it. I mean, also the fact that that you and Tarantino seem to share a brain. So, so I can imagine that he's the kind of person that you just love to sit down and have a chat with for after ages. Yeah.
I mean, I quite watch on the odd occasions, like they have the Directors Guild, and
the discussions
and I like him. But anyway, back to this. So this is it's a 70-minute documentary about Sergio, and he makes a really good point. He said Corbucci's really happy to be called the second best director of spaghetti westerns. He said if it come to the American westerns, I mean, he goes, it's more difficult. You could say like John Ford, and then who would be the second one? Would it be Welsh or Howard Hawks, so
I don't really think of Howard Hawks as a Western director.
Not as a Western director, no. But in that type of thing, some of the other directors. So anyway, so it goes through Corbucci's career and some of the films he's made. So obviously between the discussions, between the talks, there's clips from all of these different spaghetti westerns, Django, the clips, and then it goes back and they've got people who worked with Corbucci. They've got Franco Nero on there, and
legend.
And there's a bit. He did this one called the Mercenary, which, because all his films are really different compared to Leone films. They're much more dark and bloody and violent and stuff like that compared to the Leone ones. But the Mercenary apparently was one of the few times that he emulated Leone, if you like, with a final duel at the end with a great piece of music.
So is a documentary just about Sergio Corbucci?
Yeah, just about.
It's not about Django. It's about him.
Corbucci. Okay, and the reason with the Django, because he mentions afterwards, like at the end, he's saying his Django, Tarantino's Django, was because he works it all out. He works out the whole story, and he said, well, he knew it would have to take place in the antebellum South, and he works out the whole story. And he says to the Corbucci Django, he goes, there's something in this film that's never really explained. He said he's looking at a grave and it's got Mercedes on. Now, I always wondered what this Mercedes was about. And he goes, I don't think it was his wife. And he just explains the whole thing. And he says, so this is what I think. This is the story. And he makes this really credible story about he fought in the war and it's it was like his friends who got killed, sort of wife or whatever. Anyway, he just tells the story, and it's just like, wow, he's just made a film there itself, And he goes on to say that a lot of Corbucci films about fascism.
Yep.
And sometimes, I mean, as in the Grand Silence, the Gran Silencio, like sometimes the bad guys come out on top. It's not always, that's why they're quite dark, I don't know if you've seen many spaghetti westerns. Have you, Toast? Have you watched Match in the Way Apart?
Oh, you see, no, that is like I think I've the Dollars trilogy I haven't seen all the way through. Okay. Like I think you could like you could show me clips from the different films and I'll get them confused. As to which film is which.
Right.
So apart from the end of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, I haven't seen them all the way through. I have seen Django. Django was one of the first westerns I ever saw because we had it on Betamax in Nigeria. So I saw Django, the guy with the coffin and the Gatling gun and the coffin and everything like that. And so we just thought that was cool. And it didn't occur to me later until it was. So I don't think I've seen that many spaghetti westerns.
No.
Or if I have seen them, I just thought that they were westerns.
Well, yeah.
It didn't.
But the interesting thing about that is, like, in that Django, in the original Django, with the gun, there's like loads of bad guys that are wearing red masks. And Tarantino was sort of saying, well, that's probably the Ku Klux Klan, you know, but they didn't have the hoods. Instead of the hoods, they've had the masks. So it's I mean,
because Kubici would have been coming out of fascist Italy. So
he would, he was, because he was, you know, at the time he would have been coming out. So a lot of his, and they're really nasty. You know, his characters are pretty cruel and nasty and horrible characters. So they're very, very dark.
I'll tell you a scene that sticks out in my head is in the original Django where they crush his hands by riding horses over his hands.
That's right.
And that is a scene that I remember watching this thing, and I was probably about 7. Couldn't watch the scene, and even in my head now I'm thinking that is just so nasty. Why would you do that? Such a nasty thing to do. And then the final bit in the graveyard and how he gets around the fact that they've crushed that. The Kobuchi Django, the original Django is nasty.
It is,
The original Django is a nasty film.
And there's been a lot of spin-offs, but you know, it's sort of Sartana and Django meets Sartana. But this, as I say, the whole thing probably it doesn't say that Tarantino, he's just talking, but it's got him written all over it. It's got Tarantino written all over it, you know, so it wouldn't surprise me if he had quite a lot of input in this. And I could just listen to him. This was fabulous. This was just like, whoa, well, I really like that so much that I'll probably watch it again, you know.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, this it's a really, really good watch if you like spaghetti westerns. If you don't like spaghetti westerns, then you're not really spaghetti western
it sounds like it's a good entry point to find out more about spaghetti westerns.
Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, because, you know, for ages I did not know why they were called spaghetti westerns. I was like, spaghetti western? What, a western in which they eat spaghetti? What are you on about? And I did not know for absolute ages why they were called spaghetti westerns. And I think I finally found out, probably around about the age of 22 or something like that, why they were called spaghetti westerns. And I was like, Then you sort of go back and look at the films and you go, I guess it doesn't look like America. When you look at it properly, it doesn't look like America.
Yeah. He actually goes back to, Tarantino talks about the scene, you know, because the Leonardo DiCaprio character goes to Italy, doesn't he, to sort of reinvent his career?
Yes, yes. In Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And he goes into that a little bit more. He goes into that a bit more depth about his film. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So, Sean, just before you give us the start, and I know because you're a massive and you could just sort of listen to the guy talk all day, and you're talking about how much he's built these stories in his head. You do know that he has pretty much, you know, the character that Leonardo DiCaprio plays in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Rick Dalton.
Rick Dalton, that's it. Yeah, Rick Dalton, my dad. Yeah.
You know, Tarantino knows the guy's entire filmography. Like, if you go to Tarantino, he would tell you all the films that Rick Dalton starred in.
Dalton,
and he has written a book. He has written a book.
Wow.
Where, which he hasn't released yet, but I heard him talking because he wrote a novelization of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which I think you might like, because it's not exactly the same as the film. It's different from the film in that the ending of the film Once Upon a Time in Hollywood comes about halfway through the book, and then the book carries on. But he wrote this book, right, where and the whole idea is that Rick Dalton retires from Hollywood, is living in Hawaii, and then there is a film festival there where they're doing, like, you know, retrospective of Rick Dalton's work. So Rick Dalton shows up, and in the book, Quentin Tarantino is a character, and Quentin Tarantino goes and interviews Rick Dalton. So essentially, Quentin Tarantino has written a book in which he interviews Rick Dalton about his entire career, because he is just that kind of nerd. That's just the kind of...
He really is, yeah. I mean, he's yeah. Oh, that's brilliant. Oh, I'll have to look out for that then.
All right, so how many stars would you give Django Django?
Well, because it was just so good and I so really enjoyed it, this would be a 5-star. But if you weren't into spaghetti westerns, it would probably be a 4. So from a personal point of view, this has got 5-star for me written all over it.
Yep.